What's up, Minecrafters? This is PianoBoy890 or on YouTube VHSKid2, and I have for a long time now known that I loved the Applied Energistics mod, and I just decided to do a little bit of a tutorial on it. So this is what this video is going to be about. It's just going to be some automation, actually, some automation, not a basic tutorial. It's I'm already assuming that you know a little bit about Applied Energistics. You know how to power your system, you know how to run cables, and how to attach cables to the different Applied Energistics blocks. So without any further ado, let's just get right into it. You can see I have a number of machines set up here. Each of them have their own ME interface, and then we'll talk about this little setup down there in a little bit. But so some things about Applied Energistics is that you can automate smelting or cooking or crafting, and most of that is the general recipes are done with this molecular assembler chamber, or MAC for short. And right now I have no recipes because I thought I'd go through the basics of how to make recipes, which is the basics of auto crafting, with you guys. So here we go. In our little ME system here, we have some just normal stuff that you might find. I do have some recipes that we will go over in a second, but just some normal stuff that you might find. So let's grab some wood, and of course, what do you do with wood? You make planks. But how does the ME system know how to do that? Well, you need a pattern encoder right here, and so you take the wood and you put it in there, and it automatically knows that wood can be crafted into 4 planks. So we're just going to go ahead and encode that. We have some blank patterns up there, and it encoded that blank pattern with that pattern. So then we take that blank pattern and we stick it over here in the molecular assembler chamber, or the MAC. So now that pattern shows up in there as 4 wooden planks, and since we don't have any planks in the system knows that it can craft those planks now. So why don't we just go ahead and craft 1? But you see, we can't craft 1 because when oak planks are crafted, we all know that it comes up with 4 wooden planks. So we take those out and we now craft 5. You guys know what's going to happen. It's going to craft 2 sets of 4 because it can't just craft 1, so it crafted 8 for us. So now that we have some planks, what can we do with planks? Well, we can craft a button and we can make that recipe. Let's go ahead and do that. Or we can put 2 wooden planks there and give us 4 sticks. We can encode that recipe as well. And then we just take those recipes over here, and you can shift click them into the MAC, and then there they are. And then back out here, you see we have a recipe for sticks and a recipe for buttons. So that's just some basic auto crafting. You can do that with anything. Take some cobblestone, and we can drag and make that into a furnace recipe. And now we have the furnace recipe. You can do that with any basic crafting recipe. So let's just go ahead and throw that in there. Even though we're not going to use a furnace, we now have it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to cover is recipes for auto crafting with machines, like a furnace and a macerator and a compressor and all that other stuff. So here we have an interface, an ME interface, and an electric furnace. This is by IndustrialCraft 2, this is by Applied Energistics, basic stuff. So here in the interface, we have slots here for recipes, for crafting recipes, like the same recipes that you use in the MAC. And then these are other things that I'm not going to get into at this time because we're not using them for our current tutorial. So how do we use this? Well, over here I have some iron. I have iron, gold, coal, and rubber. So what we're going to do, since we don't have any iron in this system, we're going to take the iron ore and we're just going to put it into the furnace. We all know when you smelt some iron, it gives you an iron ingot. So what we do is we come over here and we have to manually input these things into the pattern encoder. So we take the iron ore, because that's what we're going to put into the furnace, and then what we get out of that process is 1 iron ingot. So that's the result. And then what we do then is we just encode that recipe like normal, take that pattern out, and then we can come over here and we can shift click that pattern into this interface. So now this interface is going to be calling for an iron ore, and it's going to put that into the furnace, and then this ME precision import bus is going to take that out of the furnace and into the ME system. So now we can see that we have a recipe for iron ingots. So when we put iron ore into the system and we call for 10 iron ingots, we can say it took the iron ore out of the system, put it into the furnace, and now you can see that it has smelted it and we're getting it back as ingots, which is awesome. So that's like the first basic step to automation. But now, as you all know, in any mod pack that has macerators or pulverizers or things like that, we can double our ore. So how do we do that? Well, we take some ore and put it in the macerator, so we can get the things that it. Oh, the ME grabbed it. So we get the results from the macerating process. So what we do then is we take the iron ore, put it there, and then since we get 2 crushed iron ore out of the macerator process, we make sure that we tell it we get 2 crushed iron ore, and we encode that, and then we come over and put it in this interface. And you see I've already done the same thing with gold ore. So this crafts 2 crushed gold ore with 1 gold ore. Same process. And then what we do is, for the next step to make ingots, is we tell it that 1 crushed iron ore equals 1 ingot. Same process. Encode that into the pattern and go put it over here. And since now we don't really want to be using this pattern anymore, we can go ahead and take that one out. And then to erase it, all you do is put it in your fist and then shift right click, and it makes the pattern blank again, and then we can just use it for whatever else we need. So now when we come in here and we take out all the ingots, we can see that we still have a crafting pattern for the ingots. But what it's going to do, let me go ahead and make 30 of them. You can see over here, it's like flashing back and forth between the macerator and the furnace, because it's putting all the iron ore in here, getting the dust and crushed iron ore, and then it's putting the ingots in here. And actually that was running really slow because I had this on move single items instead of move stacks of items, and I always like to move stacks and always active on these things. So you can see we now have 30 more iron ingots because it macerated the iron ore and then it immediately put them over into the furnace because it knew the steps that it needed to take in order for us to get iron ingots. So that is super cool. Alright guys, so now that we understand the basics of this process, we can go ahead and apply it to any other thing we want. So let's grab some coal and let's grab some rubber, and we'll tell this to we're gonna say input coal, and we're gonna go ahead and go over to the macerator and we're gonna give it a coal, grab that coal dust before the ME system steals it, and then that is that's the result of putting the coal into the macerator. Go ahead and encode that pattern, go ahead and put it over here in the interface, and there you go. Now the ME system also knows how to make coal dust, and we can do the same thing for rubber. Let's go ahead and do that because rubber is going to be a very important part of your crafting recipes for the future. Go ahead and put it in the furnace, bring it back over here. The result is an iron bar. Encode the pattern and go ahead and put it over here in the ME interface. So now we also know how to make rubber bars. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. And you can go ahead and apply that same process to anything that you would have to run through a machine, like a macerator or a compressor works also. So the next step after that is getting into machines like the metal former. So you see the metal former has different options for the processes that it does, and really the only way to automate these is to have separate machines that do separate functions. So you see this one I have on extruding, this one I have on rolling, and this one I have on cutting. And the patterns that you have need to be specific to the different function of the metal former. So this one is rolling. When you see here, when you put an iron ingot into the metal former on the rolling function, it gives you an iron plate. And then when you put an iron plate into the rolling machine, into the metal former with the rolling function, it gives you 2 iron item casings. So basically, to sum that up, is you need to have individual machines that do the separate functions. So we can come over here and we have iron ingots. So to craft iron item casings, it's gonna make iron plates, which it did, and then it made iron item casings, and it went through the middle metal former. And then I know the other one is set on extruding, so we tell that to make some HV cable, and it's going to send an ingot through that one and give us some HV cable. So basically you just have to make sure that you have the individual machines for their individual processes. Okay, so here we are at the last part of this tutorial. I told you guys that I'd go over what this little setup is here, so let's do that now. You can actually see that the ME cables and the terminal are dark, and that's because that they're not hooked up with this controller. They're not powered at the moment, but all we have to do to solve that is grab another cable and hook it up there. You see they configured, and now they are ready to go. So what this setup does is this auto crafts iron ingots when they fall below a certain level in the system. You can see right now that we only have 115 iron ingots, and both of these level emitters are set up to recognize when iron ingots, when their levels are below or equal to a limit which I've set at 200. Both of these level emitters are set up in the same configuration, and what they do is they tell these export buses to put things into the furnace and the macerator, and this interface actually works for both of these machines at the same time. So let's just run through the setup. So when iron ingots in the system fall below 200, it tells this precision export bus, which is set on active with signal and moves stacks, to export iron ore into this macerator. And then when that process goes through, it takes the crushed iron ore back into the system, and then when iron ingots are below 200, it also tells this export bus to send crushed iron ore into this furnace, which, as we just went over, makes iron ingots. So that's how this setup works. And we have some iron ore over here to test this out. So you'll see once we put the iron ore into the system that this macerator is going to fire and this furnace is going to fire. So let's just go ahead and dump all of it in, and you'll see the macerator is turning it into crushed iron ore, and the furnace is taking the crushed iron ore and converting it into ingots. Now it's not precise. You can see we have much more ingots, and we're making much more crushed iron ore than we actually need. So if we were to slow the machines down, then it would work more precisely. We have 132 extra crushed iron ore than we need, but you did see that once it was over 200, it wasn't telling these level emitters to emit anymore, which means these export buses turned off. Now we do have extra, but that's fine. So once the iron falls below 200, it fires the machine, it fires the system again, and then we'll always have above 200 iron ore in the system, which is great. So there you go, guys. That's just a basic auto crafting tutorial. We've got level emitters, we've got different interfaces and different machines, and just the basic auto crafting that the Mac provides for us. So there you go. Anything else you guys want to see? I can make another tutorial for it. I actually am planning on making another tutorial for the thermal expansion machines because it runs pretty much the exact same, just different mod, different recipes and things like that, but basically the same concept and idea. If you guys want to see anything else, like more basic or more advanced tutorials, I can try and put those out for you. But anyway, this has been Piano Boy and Zero, and keep on crafting.